Welcome back to the Week 14 edition of my weekly NFL Pick'em. I'm switching things up this week because it's just that time of year, but this is shaping up as one of, if not my best episode of the year.
Come on, y'all, been slaving over this for hours.
I set up the theme of this video with the Thursday Night Football game breakdown, so we're going to lead off with that, but if you're watching this after that game, you can always use the timestamps in the description or the pinned comment to skip ahead to the games that you want to see. We've got a lot on deck. Bye weeks are over, so we've got a full slate of games. Playoff spots are getting clinched. The fantasy football playoffs start this week. If you have any fantasy starter sit questions, ask them in the comments. Hopefully someone will be a bro and help you out. Then I've got 2 weeks of recap for the Pick'em group, and I fully updated the graphics to all 3D helmets with added smoke and lights, bells, whistles. But let's start out with our Madden 21 giveaway. Last week I asked you to share some positivity from your life in 2020, and I was overwhelmed by the responses and tried to feature as many as possible here on the screen. It's been really easy to get tunnel vision with negativity when you're stuck at home more often than not. So for me personally, it was awesome to see so many of you still thriving in these negative circumstances. The winner for this week is going to be S. Harris, so hit me up on Twitter so that I can DM you your code for Madden 21. So like I said, this week I am trying out a Talladega Nights theme because it's a freaking classic and I just wanted to, okay? But seriously, let me know what you think and if I should do another one next week. If you do want me to do a theme next week, it can be anything. Suggest some options in the comments and the suggestion with the most upvotes will be selected. If you make a suggestion, you can also add your gaming console to the comment, and from those, I'll pick the next Madden 21 winner from there. But now, let's get into this wild slate of Week 14 NFL action. On Thursday Night Football, we have Patriots versus Rams. Let me just say, last week, the biggest mistake that I made was not starting the Patriots defense in my fantasy league. Holy cow, they finally had a game similar to the ridiculous numbers that they put up last year. And wow, would you look at that? Look how good the Patriots can actually be when they utilize Cam Newton's ability to run the ball. They looked like a team that was setting up for a 2-week business trip, and their shellacking of the Chargers. They came out in the first of their 2 games in SoFi Stadium in back-to-back weeks and just completely dominated Justin Herbert. And I should have seen this coming. You should have seen this coming. We all should have probably seen this coming. Maybe this Belichick-Tom Brady breakup has got us all a little bit messed up in the head too. And not often do you send away 2 first-round picks and actually get a good return on your investment. But the Rams, they've actually managed to do so with Jalen Ramsey. Ramsey has done a solid job of just shutting the up and playing ball. And I mean that with all due respect.
What was that? Oh, I said with all due respect.
By the way, I watched Talladega Nights recently, which is why I wanted to do this, and it is so relevant still. You're gonna have to watch the whole thing when you're bored. You'll see what I mean. You might feel like you've watched it after all of the clips that I used in this video from it, but seriously, go back and laugh at how relevant some of those jokes still are today. But anyways, the scheduling of this game for the Patriots kind of feels like the NFL schedule makers did them a solid. They get to play in the same road stadium in back-to-back weeks in a pandemic. And yes, they knew what the situation was and what it was going to be like in May when they made the schedule. And I remember this vividly because they released the schedule on my birthday, and trust me, I remember the climate of the world on that day, and it was pretty clear the direction we were headed at that point. So yeah, having to eliminate the cross-country travel for a team this conveniently is a little bit unfair to the rest of the teams, because this isn't like playing in Florida 1 week and then in New York the next. But going back to the Super Bowl matchup between these 2 teams a few years ago, and then the Dolphins upset that started the Dolphin 2020 fan club, these 2 games show us that Belichick and even his disciples know how to disrupt and confuse Jared Goff. In one of my 2 money leagues, I have 3 options at quarterback: Taysom Hill or one of the 2 quarterbacks in this game. I'm leaning towards Cam Newton just because his production's been so low that I feel like he's got to have a game where he busts out. But let me know if you think it should be Taysom Hill, because it's definitely not going to be Jared Goff this week. Patriots win this one 23-20. Vikings versus Buccaneers. The Vikings barely escaped with a win at home against the Jaguars. This team is in playoff contention, but I really don't think that they're equals to the other NFC teams in the playoff hunt. Meanwhile, the Bucs are coming off a really late bye week and had plenty to work on, so hopefully Tom Brady and Bruce Arians were able to get on the same page as far as what works best in this vertical offense. This is a bad matchup and situation for the Vikings. The Bucs could hang 40 on them in this one. I'm going to say Bucs win 38-26. Cardinals versus Giants. The Cardinals may have come back down to earth, but they were always a year or 2 away from being serious contenders anyways. This season will go down in infamy for the Cardinals anyways, based on the Hail Murray alone. You don't get moments like that very often, so savor it, Cardinals fans. Let's see if Kyler, though, can avoid the same fate that Russell Wilson saw when facing this Giants defense. Daniel Jones is being rushed back into the starting lineup before Colt McCoy starts a quarterback controversy, and that's only like 75% sarcasm. I don't think that Colt McCoy winning another one would create a controversy that he should be the starter. It's more like it would add doubt to the legitimacy of Daniel Jones as the future franchise quarterback. I think that Daniel Jones plays well in this one, but still manages to turn the ball over a little too much, and the Cardinals get back on track. Cardinals win 24-21. Chiefs versus Dolphins. Man, people that get mad about that Tyreek Hill stop, flip, touchdown celebration probably suffer from a severe case of tight buttholeitis. There's a lot of things that Tyreek Hill has allegedly done in his life. I'm not over criticizing him for this one. I mean, hell, I try to do this in Madden every chance I get, right? However, I do feel like now that he's got enough of these plays for the cutscenes of his future Hall of Fame career highlight video, he should start planning these moves with a PR person, because he's obviously still getting vilified by the general public, and this stuff might not be the best look. He's actually dealing with a non-COVID related illness this week, so we'll see if that impacts his ability to play in the game. But I do have questions / concerns for the Chiefs. Are they peaking too soon? This happens almost every year. Team dominates regular season, team's clear-cut favorite to win the Super Bowl, and then Goliath loses to David in their first game of the playoffs. The early favorite team is always susceptible to an even earlier upset in the playoffs. By now, you guys could probably all say it for me, but I'll say it again. I think something catastrophic has to happen for the Chiefs to lose in the playoffs. Like what the Titans did to the Ravens last year, but even more catastrophic. I don't even want to speak it into existence, if you know what I mean. There's never any guarantees that that won't happen. And Mahomes has settled in as a veteran quarterback by now, but early on in his career, he did show an extra jitteriness to him in big matchups. And the pressure to repeat as Super Bowl champions gets heavy. And this is the stadium that he won a Super Bowl in, so he's going to be in the field early on in this one. But for the Dolphins, this is their Super Bowl. Their playoff hopes are alive and well, but much like with the Cardinals in the NFC, the Dolphins are probably overachieving the season as a whole. So I think that they give this one their all, but it's impossible to pick against the Chiefs. So I'll say Chiefs win 28-20. Titans versus Jaguars. You know how kids pick up on things that their parents say or do? Well, coaches are like parents. And I imagine in the week leading up to the Browns game, maybe Mike Vrabel didn't take the Browns as seriously or let his guard down just a little bit, and all that energy was contagious throughout the Titans team going into the game. Also, I would like to retract my previous statement about Derrick Henry being Brandon Jacobs. It's literally just in size. Derrick Henry does not play like Brandon Jacobs, who sought out contact. I'm not doubting or hating on Derrick Henry, but that was just an emotional hyperbole. Brandon Jacobs was like Rhino, where Derrick Henry is much lighter and shiftier on his feet. And I might have actually picked the Jaguars to pull the upset on the Titans if the Browns didn't just punch them in the mouth, because this would have had the makings of a trap game.
Listen, you better be careful, because tomorrow you're going to get beaten real bad, cowboy.
Really?
Yes!
This is going to be a tough zone I'm going to take away. I play for keeps.
But the poor Jaguars might run into their abusive daddy this week in Derrick Henry. Titans win 34-23. Packers versus Lions. The Lions played really well in their first game under Darrell Bevell, and the Packers should be a little concerned. Like, not a lot, but maybe just a little. Packers win this one 35-24. Cowboys versus Bengals. Man, the Cowboys are so bad, the NFL flexed them out of their Sunday night football matchup for the first time ever. So their week 15 game against the 49ers is no longer going to be on Sunday night. They haven't done this to America's team since NBC took over Sunday Night Football in 2006. But this week we've got the Andy Dalton revenge game, which could turn into the sorry we didn't retaliate when you got lit up that one time by John Bostic game. And I could see the Cowboys coming together and playing really well overall against a much less talented team. But if Andy Dalton sucks, you're going to see Dak trying to get back on the field.
Oh, hell, you don't get my car off the trailer, guys.
Hold on, Ricky. What are you talking about?
Look, I want to drive, okay? My arm's fine. So look, get the car off the trailer.
Even though there's no way he would ever medically be cleared just yet. Honestly, knowing that your team doesn't have a shot to win is a terrible place to be as a fan. That was me last week with the Cowboys against the Ravens. I was impressed with their early effort, but this defensive unit is just not very good, and the team as a whole is just poorly organized. In fact, this run defense is why I gave the Cowboys Penn State linebacker Micah Parsons over a defensive back like Patrick Surtain II, because these Cowboys linebackers are just too erratic for me. Maybe it's the scheme, but I think I'm just good on Mike McCarthy as a whole. McCarthy and Pro Football Focus hustled us all with this, oh, he's been studying analytics in his year off BS, because all that has equated to is the Cowboys going for it randomly on fourth down. This dude is washed up, and I hope for Jerry Jones' sake that he's got another head coaching hire in him before it's all said and done, because his time is running out, and I'd hate for the end of his run with the Cowboys to finish with a guy like Mike McCarthy. As far as Bengals fans, you guys shouldn't even want to win, because you're set up so nicely to get the best offensive lineman in the draft right now. I think they can rest Joe Mixon for the remainder of the season at this point. Load up for 2021 with a full healthy unit. This week, I just want to see who makes a bigger impact, Andy Dalton or AJ Green. The Cowboys will probably screw up and win this one, and they could also benefit from continuing to lose, but McCarthy has less job security than Zach Taylor at this point, so I'm leaning towards the desperate coach screwing up the draft stock. Cowboys win 31-20. Texans versus Bears. These two teams both lost in dramatic fashion at the end of their respective games last week. The Bears, they're basically in a lose-lose with the quarterback situation right now. Mitch Trubisky's lack of awareness basically cost them a game, but honestly, Trubisky shouldn't have even been put in a position to collapse like that. I'm looking at you, Nagy. Trust your defense more than your quarterback. This is the Chicago Bear way. Deshaun Watson, though, is a competitor, and he's going to want to bounce back from that loss to the Colts, especially against the team that passed on him for Trubisky. Sorry, I almost made it through this whole breakdown without referencing that. Texans win 27-24. Broncos versus Panthers. Force them out for the Drew Lock fan club. We have decided to go our separate ways.
Oh, really? Shake and bake is dead.
It's actually a shame that we don't let quarterbacks develop anymore, and Drew Lock's career isn't over, but as of right now, he's not putting the Broncos in a favorable position heading into the offseason, which is quite the contrast to the feeling he gave Broncos fans heading into the last offseason. Christian McCaffrey returned to practice for the Panthers, but it's unlikely he plays in this one. Probably won't matter. Panthers are coming off a bye week, and I expect Matt Rule to have his guys ready to take advantage of some of the glaring weaknesses in this Broncos team. Panthers win 21-17. Jets versus Seahawks. I mean, come on. The 12-year-olds playing Madden know better than to make that kind of defensive play call. The game on the line, Greg Williams earned his tank paycheck with that defensive call. He was, of course, fired shortly after that, but you know that he had to go out with a bang because he's just such a cool guy, isn't he? Even though I think this was a disgraceful way to behave as a coach in any sport at the professional level, Greg Williams may have given the Jets organization one of the greatest gifts in franchise history in the form of draft capital. And I've seen some people defending Greg Williams by saying that he's done this before in the past, calling the cover zero blitz with the game on the line, but this was not one of those circumstances where you do that. The fact that the Jaguars were in position to win a game at the very same time just added to the drama of it all, and honestly is part of what makes the NFL so unique as a viewing experience. Although I do love the fact the NFL has played a game on every day of the week in 2020. It's just kind of a joke overall, to be honest, but that's enough of the Jets. The Seahawks are a shell of the squad that I was touting as NFC faves early in the year. I think they still make a deep playoff run here, especially when Josh Gordon joins this already stacked receiving core, but they're at risk of having to do it all on the road at this rate. They'll get it done this week in the Jamal Adams game. Seahawks win 37-23. Colts versus Raiders. The Colts, they got away with one in Houston. And guess what? I got away with one of the fantasy football streams of the decade. I wasn't able to find a replacement for Will Fuller before Sunday morning, and I looked at T.Y. Hilton on the street and remembered that he is the Texans' daddy. So if he's going to have a breakout game, it was going to be in his home away from home, and man, he delivered. And in the few minutes where it looked like the Raiders were about to lose to the Jets, you'd be amazed at how much slander I was able to type up on them for beating the best team in the league and then losing to the worst one. But the Raiders were able to salvage what should have been an easy win for them. I think it was a wake-up call, and they get things done this week at home against the Colts. Raiders win 26-20. Washington football team versus the 49ers. I won't even talk about how the Washington football team cheated for the first 3 points of the game against the Steelers, but they matched up well with them actually, and their defense is one of the best in the league. In this one, Alex Smith gets to go back to the Bay, play in his old team's new stadium. The comeback player of the year is coming off a game where Ron Rivera showed us that Alex Smith is going to actually literally have to lose his leg before he's willing to put Dwayne Haskins back in. I think that this is the best head coach and quarterback combo in the NFC East, and that is a solid recipe for NFL success and why I think that they will win the division. But can I just say that if I'm Robert Saleh, I'm not going to the Detroit Lions. There's a big push for him to be hired as their next head coach, but I think that the Falcons would be the ideal spot for him since the defense that Dan Quinn was trying to build is the same defense that he runs. So there's already pieces there to work with. But honestly, I get concerned with the high energy kind of guys as head coaches. Mike Vrabel is the rare example of brawn with a side of brains. Pete Carroll is a rare example of the energy with the brains. And I don't know Robert Saleh personally, but I think his best bet for success is in the Bay, coaching with Kyle Shanahan. He's got a stacked defensive unit once everybody gets healthy next year and comes back. I think his defense should be able to contain Washington this week. Question will be whether or not Kyle Shanahan will be able to move the ball on his former team's defense. I actually don't think he does, and Washington wins 20-17. Saints versus Eagles. The Saints have clinched a playoff berth for the 4th straight season, and they've done it with 3 straight wins from a tight end at quarterback. Sean Payton's Coach of the Year resume is as impressive as anyone's for navigating the Drew Brees injury and marrying the offense to the defense and allowing his defense to thrive as one of the best units in the league. Last week, Jalen Hurts came in for the Eagles and gave them a much-needed spark. Imagine that. With this veteran roster, a dynamic rookie quarterback is almost guaranteed to have instant impact in this scenario. Whether or not he can sustain that spark is the question. The good news is that Doug Peterson didn't wait too long, and the Eagles still have a chance to jumpstart their season. The bad news is that this isn't the week I'd want to put a rookie in for his first start or even an increased role, because the Saints defense is one of the best in the league. But Carson Wentz was practically begging for a benching with his performance and just overall body language. Problem is, I don't see how you put Carson Wentz back in there and look these veterans in the eye and tell them that Wentz gives you the best chance to win. And I think that's why Jalen Hurts is getting the start this week. But some of you may remember I mentioned how I thought that Brian Flores nailed the how to handle a rookie quarterback, and I'd say that Doug Peterson is completely bombing it. It's pretty obvious that he doesn't want to start him or wasn't responsible for the draft pick altogether, and now he's bringing him in to start against two of the best teams in the NFC, and in this one where he's likely to get outshined by a tight end playing on the other side.
It's your call. What do you think? Don't say it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say it. Nope. Break it, Pepe Le Pew.
As you wish.
He actually did it. You did it. Back off. Oh, you did it. I say. No, you did not.
Your injury is one of ignorance and pride. Au revoir.
You hate to see it. Saints win 26-14, and then watch Carson Wentz end up with the Patriots next year. Belichick will download the latest update onto his confidence processing unit, and he'll be back to MVP form in a jiff. Falcons versus Chargers. I highlighted this as a matchup for the memes a while back because these two franchises both have such a tendency to crash and burn in dramatic fashion. It's going to be interesting to see what they've got in store when their drama collides. Sadly, this might be one of the final games for Chargers head coach Anthony Lynn. His squad hasn't shown up since he screwed up the final minutes of the Bills game. Literally, they were a complete no-show last week, and this week he's taking over special teams duty. Not sure if adding more to his plate is going to help. This feels like a latch-stitch effort coaches make when they know they have to do something drastic to save their job. By the way, hang tight until the end so I can clarify something I said about Anthony Lynn in my last video. I don't want to mix it in with the football talk, but this is probably one of the best games without playoff implications. Give me the veteran squad that's actually still trying to win for their coach. Falcons win 28-27. And then on Sunday Night Football, we've got the Steelers versus the Bills. After having to bend and flex for the league for almost 2 months, the Steelers finally suffered a loss. And honestly, it always feels like a weight has been lifted off of a team's shoulders when they no longer have to answer questions every week to media reporters about being perfect or undefeated. Meanwhile, the Bills are a Hail Mary away from winning 6 straight games, and the Josh Allen-Stephon Diggs connection looks borderline unstoppable. They might remind Steelers fans of Big Ben and Antonio Brown in their prime. I think that they're both playing that well. The Steelers could bounce back after their loss, but I think the downfall for the Steelers will be Big Ben trying to be the star, not relying on the running game and the defense, and putting too much pressure on the defense by giving the Bills too many offensive possessions. Bills win 27-23. And then on Monday Night Football, we've got Ravens versus Browns. The real story coming from the Ravens' thrashing of the Cowboys is that they just ran for 300 yards on an NFL team. But the story everyone wants to talk about is the Dez Bryant positive COVID test, which, don't get me wrong, I had my hashtag Dez Caught It sweatshirt on. I was ready to go. But people are losing their minds over the NFL's contact tracing. Now, assuming that this wasn't actually Jerry Jones calling down to get Dez Bryant out of the game, this Dez Bryant positive COVID test is the result of an outbreak that is still lingering around the Ravens facility a little bit. Dez was probably his most contagious in the days leading up to the game, and the people that were around him during warm-ups when he was hugging former Cowboys teammates and interacting with his own teammates are at risk. They may have caught COVID from being around Dez Bryant at that time, but that doesn't mean that they are now contagious to where they are producing virus particles that could contaminate or get someone else sick. What that does mean that there was probably someone else out there on the Ravens team in that same small window of time where you are shedding the virus, but it's still showing up negative in tests, and apparently the Ravens are actually so close to the testing facility that they get the results back sooner than your typical franchise would. So where any other team might have not found out until after the game or until the next day, this was a situation where they got fortunate and found somebody that was going to infect other people. And you know Dez Bryant's a talker, so he would have been running his mouth, spreading the virus everywhere throughout the whole game. They were able to get him out of the game and reduce that spread. So I think this was a win for them. I'm not really sure why the NFL gets so much criticism. They've done a lot of weird and questionable things, and I'm not saying that this is a foolproof method, but the NFL saw it worth it so that the show can go on, and that's going to be the theme of this entire season. And like I said, somebody on the Cowboys will likely get a positive case from this game or the pregame hugs from Dez, but it's not like Dez brought COVID cooties to the field and therefore everyone on the field was now contagious and spreading it. I think the real tragedy here is that Dez Bryant's character arc now looks like it's actually a tragedy after he had a little stretch there where he was one of the best receivers in the league. However, the Browns are proof that tragedies can have their redemption story. because man, this Cleveland Browns squad is good, and they've been really good at winning close games. They are an NFL best 6-0 in games decided by 6 or fewer points. For reference of this greatness, the Chiefs and Saints, arguably the best team from the AFC and NFC, are 5-0 in the same scenario. Over the last couple years, the Browns have handled the Ravens better than most, and with Kevin Stefanski joining the ranks as one of the top game day coaches, I think they get it done here. Browns win 28-24. Alright, that's going to do it for the picks, but I wanted to address this Anthony Lynn thing. I mentioned that it was unfortunate that he was failing as a head coach because there is a lack of minority head coaches in the NFL. The league is literally going to be giving teams draft picks for getting minority head coaches hired in the future to incentivize teams to put these guys in positions that they deserve, building them up to get beyond those coordinator positions. 2020 has shown us all that it's okay to evolve and learn new things about people that are different from us, but it's also pretty clear that talking about race still makes some of y'all really uncomfortable. If that's the case, you might want to do some self-reflection because you might be ashamed of your inner racist. I've avoided these topics as much as possible because I can understand y'all are here for football takes, but the NFL acknowledging that this is an issue makes it a football issue too. So yeah, it's frustrating to see a black head coach that walks and talks just like you would want from any head coach in the NFL to then struggle with the processing side of things at the end of a game, because I just know old Johnny White supremacist is at home reinforcing an all too common yet ignorant projection of the level of intelligence from a black person. I replied to someone last week about this. Just felt like if one person comments about something like that, more of you probably feel the same kind of way, so I should clarify. It's also late enough into the season that I feel like y'all are watching because you know this isn't my typical commentary. If I weed out a couple of racist folks, that's fine too, because they are still out there. It really is just a level of stubbornness and ignorance, but that's not going to be a valid excuse after 2020. This year was a lesson in human equality for our civilization, and if you want to be left on the wrong side of history, that's on you. Let me step down off of this and now jump into our 2-week recap of the Pick'em group.
First or last, you can be second, you can be third, fourth, hell, you can be fifth.
I'm at the point where really I'm not even worried about picking the right games as much as I am about providing y'all with some entertainment and hopefully adding to your Sunday experience with calling me out for being right or wrong. In week 12, I crushed it with 14 points. I tied Whodat, ESPN Fan, and Daniel for the top overall spot. In week 13, I gotta tell you, I don't know why I keep having this reoccurring flash at 1 p.m. Eastern time reminding me that I just forgot to adjust my picks and that it's too late to change them. I submitted for the entire season a few weeks ago so that I could have something submitted in case I forgot again. So thanks to that, this week I only missed out on the Colts win, so I technically should have 10 this week. Either way, I still wouldn't have even made the front page for week 13. Dispick, Costco 14, and James were in the number 1 spot with 13 picks. Our overall leader with 128 points. Remember, we dropped the lowest week is Mr. Quebec Steelers. 1 point behind him is Niner Gang. These two have been duking it out all season. Then we've got a 3-way tie at number 3 with Rash. I want to get that looked at. David 2 and Furpo all with 126. You guys got to stay on your A game down the stretch here. Stay tuned for my Christmas mock draft and playoff prediction videos coming out in the next couple weeks. Thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, subscribing, all that good stuff. Remember to hit that like button. Our goal is 1,000 likes on these videos. I appreciate you guys riding through with me for 14 straight weeks of this stuff. Let me know what you thought of the Talladega Nights theme, and I will see you all in the next video.